Matt, how about a pick from you? Something that you're looking at or like? Anything standing out in your mind?
Well, one of the ones that, and I'm going to use this because it's in the commodity area as well that we just talked about, energy or energy stocks. But it's also, I think, helpful for a little tutorial of a key rule to follow. The rule doesn't happen every year, but the stock I'm talking about is Glencore. It's actually an overseas stock, but they do have an ADR, and so you can easily buy it here.
Okay.
In the U.S. without any problem. But I am a believer in the number one, that inflation is going to pick up next year. I'm not looking for huge, some people are looking for huge takeoff in inflation. But much like it is with energy, the whole commodity sector has been beaten up since 2011. It's underowned, it's undervalued. I mean, and first, another thing, Glencore pays an 8% dividend yield. Okay, so again, they pay for you to wait. I first got into this when the stock was at about 450, now it's at 5, so it's had a nice run so far, but I think it can go a lot higher over time. And again, it's this whole situation where on a macro basis, I look at the amount of debt we have in the world, especially in the US in particular, but around the world, corporate debt, government debt, total debt is just off the charts. We're in somewhat of a corporate debt bubble. Mm-hmm. There's really only one way we can get out of this without a complete catastrophe, and that's to inflate our way out. Again, I'm not looking for 1970 style inflation that most of the professors who teach at colleges nowadays, it's next inflation is going to be, I've been hearing about a huge pickup from inflation for 10 years, ever since the Fed started their QE programs, and it hasn't come, but it should come, it should pick up. Now, just one other thing, the other reason why I'm talking about this stock is that it's a great tool to use for a key rule, is that sell when the smart people sell. Okay. When the smart people sell their companies, okay? If a CEO like the Pfizer guy just sold 60% of his stock the other day, that's not good. I'd liked Pfizer before. Now I'm like, well, wait a minute, 60%? But the real thing is, look at the smart companies that have to IPO. In other words, they sold their companies through an IPO. Goldman Sachs did it. When did they do it? 1999. What happened a year later? The tech bubble burst. Blackstone, one of the biggest PE firms in the world. When did they sell? They sold in 2007, 6 months before the credit crisis blew up. Sam Zell, it was a private company, held his real estate company. When did he sell? This is his whole life. Real estate's his whole life. But he sold his company. He said it was because he knew the bubble was there. It was time to get out. Okay. And Glencore did the same thing in 2011, the spring of 2011. They went public after 20 some odd years of being a private company, because they saw that there was a bubble in the commodities area, and they sold. So now, one last thing, I'm sorry to keep rambling on here, but
that's okay.
Just because a company goes public doesn't mean they're selling. You say, well, wait a minute, Microsoft, they went public, the stock took off for the next 15 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's true. But you know how much the founder, Bill Gates sold? $1 million worth. That was it. He sold practically nothing. He wanted to get out of his mother's garage, so he needed a few extra bucks. That was it. He said publicly, "I want to buy on this IPO." It was the venture capital guys who sold, not him. So not just because it's an IPO doesn't mean the company's selling. But watch what the insiders do when they sell. Get out.
Get out. Okay, good. And that's easily that information's readily available, I'm assuming, on the internet. You can.
Oh, absolutely.
All fully disclosed. They have to disclose that only.
Right.
Insiders, right?
Right. Okay. Absolutely.
Great. Okay, good.